So it probably took a little longer than typical to complete out your coaching staff, but now that it's done, what do you think about it?
I'm very happy with our coaching staff. It's nice to be able to, reward within the system too. And Tiny's I've gotten so many texts and calls about him. And not only that, from players, from people in the system. Pat Burrell's ecstatic, former Giant. So that was, kind of an easy one. And then Oscar Bernard, who I had in San Diego, I really enjoyed him there too. He's got a great way about him too. We were kind of deciding whether it was going to be 3 or 2 in the hitting department, because we kind of cut it to 2 in the pitching department. But there a lot goes on in those cages. A lot of Spanish speakers in there too, and it just ended up being falling in our lap. So we're really happy with how the staff came together. Like I said, promote from in, one of the remaining guys. I think there's a cohesiveness to the staff that's going to be really good.
Trend is to go bigger. You guys didn't backfill for JP. Why is that, and also what made JP the choice for you?
With Brian last year, JP was kind of jumped over. That might have been kind of his turn. He's very well versed in the analytics as well. A lot of our guys and a lot of our younger guys really speak that language, whether it's grips, whether it's spin, whether it's a lot of the biomechanics stuff that he covers really well. And getting to know him last year, it seemed like had the respect of all our pitchers, and just felt like it was his time.
And you're not going to add it. You're going to go down to 2 there.
Yeah, and Garvin, Garvin's basically a pitching coach as well, even though he's in the bullpen, and he did a great job with those guys. And sometimes, the message, the more guys you have, sometimes the message might not be as succinct. Not to saying that was the case last year, but we're comfortable with the 2-man pitching group today.
Bob, since we saw you last at the end of the season, there's been a lot of transition in your baseball ops. What's your take on everything that's happened?
In baseball ops?
Yeah. You're working for a completely different organization.
It's certainly a little different now, but there are also some guys that remain that we're confident in. And Pike Goldschmidt we brought in, who I was with in Oakland, kind of doing Schwartzy's role. And, Schwartzy gets to do something a little bit different too. There's typically some turnover there, but, kind of the bones of it is still there, and it's something that we continue to value.
What about Posey taking over the whole thing?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's been so well received. And just spending time with him and listening to his baseball acumen. And I was just talking a minute ago, there's certain guys that are just very common sense smart, and everything that comes out of their mouth just sounds like, that's well said and makes a lot of sense. So it's been great to not only have that, but for the organization as well to have an icon like that running the Giants. I think it's received across the board everywhere.
When this offseason began, what was your expectation for just how aggressive Buster and Buster's group would be at improving this team?
Well, Buster's a winner. He wants to win. That's why he's here. So, we'll see where it goes from here. But a lot of the conversations about the types of players that we talk about all fit really well. There's a lot of off-season left, and obviously here at the winter meetings is when a lot of stuff happens. But it from the very beginning, it was about not scaling back. It was, how are we going to improve this team? And I think, we'll be well on our way to improving the team.
Mr. talked about being pretty high, despite having a down year last year, balance that.
Yeah.
Doing his business, especially that he found himself as the year long, even with his struggles.
Right. Oh, yeah, and as he should. Everybody's going to have to, at some point in time, go through some struggles. It's how you handle it. And I think he handled it beautifully. He went down there and he worked on the things we asked him to. It's very rare you find guys that throw 99 and have a wipeout slider, and hitters are not comfortable in the box. It's how you kind of process and move forward when you have some struggles. sometimes it can end up being good for you and making you better. And I think, we're excited about having him back. We'll see what roles look like but he's been a closer, he's been an all-star. The stuff hasn't gone away. There's a lot to like about him.
Buster talked about, he said he called Tyler to let him know he's probably a second baseman next year. How do you anticipate? Last year you moved them all around, especially in spring training, and having a full offseason to focus on second base. What could that do?
If indeed that's where he's playing, yeah. But I think as we saw last year, once he was given the opportunity to play every day, it looked a lot different. And for younger players that are used to playing every day in the minor leagues, there's power, there's speed, there's a lot to love about Tyler Fitzgerald. And once he actually we said, okay, here's what you're going to do. This is the position that you are going to concentrate on. You don't have to work half the day in the outfield, half the day in the infield, which is tough for a younger player. I think you saw the talent level start to rise. So, look, he'll do anything. I've talked to him as well. He'll do anything, but it's always nice to know that potentially there's a spot that you can, just, prepare for, and, confidence-wise, we saw what that did for him last year.
What's it like to see Snell sign with the Dodgers, and what kind of role do you think that was in the rotation?
Well, he was a hole, but, there's always going to be turnover. I look at it. He was going to go somewhere where, at this point in time in his career, he wants to win. So it's not a surprise. Obviously our division, the Dodgers, world champions, that much tougher. But it's also fun to play teams like that. And, he's going to make them better. But, wish him the best, except for against us. And it probably would have been a long shot for him to come back here, especially how well he performed last year. And obviously the Dodgers got it done pretty quickly, and they really wanted him.
What was your reaction, Bob, when you saw the Soto news last night?
Wow. I mean, you knew it was going to be a lot of money in a lot of years based on what he's accomplished in his career and how young he is still. But it's phenomenal. I mean, for him, I'm happy for him. I got to know him, pretty well in San Diego, and this was a year that he was setting himself up for this type of deal. I don't know that anybody could have really predicted what the number would be, but if anybody's going to get money like that, it's going to be Juan. He's one of the premier players in the game.
Were you surprised with the number?
Maybe a little bit, but I say that every winter meetings, it seems like. So, they're not going to pay him if they can't pay him.
You mentioned your relationship with Michael back to the time in Oakland. What's characteristics, traits really stuck out in the time?
Well, it was I think his first year, can't remember what year it was there, but it's having to deal with a major league coaching staff. And there's always a point person that has to deal with a major league coaching staff. And I know from my conversations with Kotz, he's been invaluable there, for those guys. And there's always a point guy that, is in charge of the advanced stuff and the analytic work. And, when you lose a guy like Michael Schwartz and you're able to replace him, with a guy like Pike, you feel that much better. And I also have, some experience with him. So it's a great sign for us. It's a really good sign for me.
It was a big deal in San Francisco when Alyssa got hired. Obviously, what kind of conversations did you have with her, maybe about what her future was like?
Yeah, look, we had a role for her. We weren't sure what the analytic department was going to look like. We weren't sure who was going to be on the point for the major league staff to give us the type of information. But for her to get a role like this, I mean, that really sets up for the next job in her career to be whatever she wants to do. It's been front office, it's player development now, it's coaching, major league coaching staff. This is a huge step for her and a really big job. So I'm really happy for her. Obviously, we hate losing her, and she's meant so much to the Giants and San Francisco, the city in general. Groundbreaking, trailblazer, all those type of things. But this is a really good move for her.
What can you tell us about Sagana? What can you tell us about Sagana?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Well, Sakano, the Japanese player.
Oh yeah.
You think he's a match fit for you?
Look, he's a fit for anybody's bullpen. So we'll see where things go. We have discussions about everybody, but I mean, you see the success that the Japanese players have now, and how instrumental they are in the big leagues, and seems like with every team now. There's no doubt he's going to have some success. We'll see where he goes, but he'll help any team that has the opportunity to sign him.
Is there any update on the
I can't.
Update on Jung.
Oh, Jung Hoo's good to go. Jung Hoo's ready. So he come to spring training. There'll be no restrictions on him.
What does it mean to you? He came back to your lineup.
Oh, it's going to be huge for us. I mean, you saw what he meant to us early in the season for a guy that hadn't played in the big leagues at spring training, and just a little a guy that was leading off for us. He can hit anywhere in the lineup. We saw him play maybe even a better center field than maybe we envisioned. Going down early in the season, once the season goes along, you kind of realize at some point in time we're missing a key player for us. So to be able to get him back is almost like another free agent signing, or just bringing in a big player, because he wasn't with us that long, but he has the ability to be an all-star.
Also, your strength and shortstop now is a difference too. Strength and shortstop?
Yeah, we'll see where that goes. We can't really comment on those type of things at this point.
Assuming that you don't have a need there anymore, what would you identify as the next thing that this roster really needs?
Well, look, I think we're kicking the tires on everything. We've had conversations with, whether it's another reliever, whether it's another starter, whether it's another bat. I think, those are probably the three areas that we're targeting. Where the bat is, we'll see. Kind of the DH spot's open a little bit potentially right now too. With Lamont, he can DH, play first base, could be a first baseman. And then you're always looking to add pitching, but we really do. We have a lot of good young pitching in our organization. So we'll see where it goes with that. And we're comfortable, obviously at the top with Webby and Robbie and Jordan, and then we have a whole host of Harry and Birdsong and Roop and guys like some of the guys that we didn't even see last year with Carson Seymour and Wisenhunt, and we have a lot of depth in our organization as far as starting pitching goes. So whether or not that's the biggest need, I'm not sure, but I do know that just talks amongst the front office now, there isn't an area that we're not trying to identify what would be the best area for us. So it could be anywhere.
You had to start the season today. Who's your DH?
I think that's one we're going to move around. I don't think we're going to bring in a set DH. Now, we could, but I think that's one we want to be able to give some guys some days off to. Whether it's a Chapman, Lamont can DH or he can play first. Ramos played a lot. I think we would probably like to be able to move the DH spot around as opposed to kind of pigeonhole one guy for the DH spot.
What's your outlook on Wilmer for Friends?
Well, Wilmer's another guy. I mean, look, I'm excited that he's excited right now about where he is physically. And we saw last year that was not the same guy. So, you talk about adding a hitter and so forth. I mean, Wilmer would be almost like, vintage Wilmer would almost be like adding another guy as well. He was just not healthy enough to be himself last year after the year before where he was an absolute terrific performer offensively. And he can play some first base too. So it's exciting to know that he's fully healthy and what we could have in Wilmer as well. And when you talk about another bat, it could be as simple as that if Wilmer's Wilmer.
You checked in with them?
Yeah, no, he feels good. He's excited.
Expectations for Robbie?
Yeah, I think Robbie's going to be a lot more comfortable this year. When you come back as late as he did and had 2 surgeries, to really expect him to be that guy that he was probably a little bit much to ask. But a full off season now, going into the season mentally, Robbie Ray, who he was before, we saw spurts where the velo was there. We saw spurts where the breaking ball was there. I think, giving him a full season, after kind of coming back what he came off of, we're expecting big things out of Robbie, and I know he's pretty excited too.
He talked a lot about the need to maybe better prepare himself.
Yeah.
Physically, at least.
I haven't this offseason yet. I know he's in San Francisco right now. I will here at some point in time, but I think it was a big learning experience for him because it started out really good, and the velo was there right away, and there were times we felt like he was as good as anybody we had out there, and the velo dropped off a little bit, and his body wasn't recovering quite as well. Obviously had to put him in the bullpen after that. But I think for him, that was a big learning experience, how to prepare for a full season. I think he's up for the task this year.
Bob, do you guys find it a little daunting to try to keep up with the Dodgers and their spending at this point?
If they're spending,
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's going to keep up with their spending. But they're world champions, and they're getting better too. So I don't know that it's all about spending. It's just about us putting a cohesive team together, and I think by the time this offseason's over, I feel like we're going to have a really good team. And it's more really just about us worrying about ourselves and being the team that we expect to be as worried more about other teams.
One or two more?
Yeah, taking the next step. Both are really talented guys. I mean, I never thought we'd see Hayden Birdsong last year really at the big league level. He did, but for him to perform how he did, and I think for him, the biggest step was he went through a really difficult period at the big leagues. First time he's probably been knocked around like that before. Command wasn't as good, and then he recovered from it and pitched really good again towards the end. So I think confidence-wise, going home after a season like that, he feels good about himself. High-end stuff. Same thing with Harry. Harry pitched through some times where maybe he could have taken a start off or whatever, but he wouldn't do it. Had the one injury that happened, with his ankle or whatever it was that I think affected him for a while. But again, sometimes a step back or sometimes not having a perfect season can make you better going forward, knowing what you have to do. And I think Harry learned a lot about himself last year, and I expect him to, this was a couple years ago, was probably the top left-handed pitcher in baseball as far as prospect goes. And I don't think anything's changed in our mind.
You say you only worry about yourself. The Dodgers seem to win the division every year except for one.
Yeah.
And then now with the World Series. How do you cope with kind of knowing that it's almost like a done deal, you're going to do it again?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of times it's the teams that wins the World Series isn't the one that's always forecast to win it. Now, they did, but they also went through some issues last year too, with losing a lot of starting pitches, and they probably did it a little bit differently last year than they expected to. Look, they're a challenge. They're going to be a challenge. They have some of the best players in the game. They have a high payroll. They're adding guys like Blake, and Michael Conforto just signed with them too, and so forth. So they're going to be a challenge, but I think we once we start playing them, then we worry a little bit more so about them. But it's a really good team for a reason. They're put together very well, but you have to like the competition part of it. You have to look forward to hopefully being a team like that.
Is this similar to when you were in San Diego? They were doing the same thing and kind of winning?
Yeah, and in that year, I think I'm not sure, we maybe won one series against them the entire year, and then we ended up beating them in the postseason. So, that was a big deal for San Diego then. It was a big deal for the team, the city, everything. And that's always what the Dodgers bring to the table, is that kind of a challenge. It's a huge challenge. So it's going to be that way again this year.